From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reported tonight.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, anxious relatives besiege O.R. Tambo International Airport in South Africa, hoping for safe return of loved ones from Nigeria following the synagogue building collapse. Education Minister visits College of Education Kano, says security is everyone's business. House of Representatives summons Petroleum Minister over oil workers' strike. A new video released showing a captured man said to be a British journalist held hostage by Islamic State militants. And on business news tonight, federal government releases 200 billion naira for execution of capital projects.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's Super Eagles dropped 4 places in the latest FIFA ranking after a poor start to the 2015 African Cup of Nations qualifiers.
There is no word from the Synagogue Church of All Nations on the casualty figure from the collapsed building. This silence is worrying many, including anxious relatives who besieged the O.R. Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg today, hoping to see their loved ones return safely from Lagos. For some, it's a very frustrating wait, as they complain that they are not getting any information about what's happened. The South African President Jacob Zuma, in his letter to the Nigerian government, claimed that 67 South Africans died in the incident. Our correspondent in South Africa, Betty Dibia, was at the airport in Johannesburg and now reports.
A nail-biting wait. For many families, there is a happy ending, but not so for some others, like this distraught young man whose mother is still unaccounted for. Here at the O.R. Tambo International Airport, anxious relatives have been waiting daily, eyes on the flight schedule board there, as well as the door behind me, hoping that their relatives will come through with other passengers, or at least information about them will filter through as soon as possible.
We tried to phone the church and nobody answered. I don't know how many phone numbers we've tried. I even tried to phone my mother, her phone was off. Eventually I got one of the guys there in Nigeria and I asked them, what has happened? And he said to me, yes, the building has collapsed, but don't worry, just pray. And that's all they said.
Meanwhile, governments on both sides say efforts are on to manage the crisis with hotlines and help rooms, as well as collaborative rescue efforts. It's quiet outside Nigeria's High Commission in Pretoria, but official sources say visas have been granted gratis to South African officials involved and repatriation fees waived for affected relatives wishing to visit Nigeria at this point.
It's us phoning them, phoning the embassy in Nigeria, phoning the government, international relations. All of them, they've got no information. The only thing that they normally tell me is that my mothers are accounted for.
For the likes of Paul Matlwele, whose mother, a third-time pilgrim, is still missing, the painful wait continues amid waning hope. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, back here at home, rescue operations at the site of the collapsed building have ended. A combined team of the National and Lagos State Emergency Management Agency told journalists that there are no more bodies. They revealed that the second phase of data collation and identification of victims has commenced. The final death figure released by the agency is put at 80, with 131 survivors.
I can assure you 100% that there is nobody but bodies or living person in this place again. We've reached the ground zero level.
The emergency phase has ended. So all the responders will move out of the site. while evacuation of debris and other things will be done. However, samples have been taken. Disaster management investigation is of different categories. Each agencies will do, while emergency managers themselves will carry out specific emergency investigations, which will help in some sorts why the victims, the type of ailment, the type of diseases or wounds they have, will help in further mass medical emergency response. Already, the investigation of DNA and other things have commenced. As I understand, the Ministry of Health are going about it, and they are going to give the data of the victims in detail at their own time.
Over now to security matters, and Kano residents are still in shock 24 hours after 2 suicide bombers and some gunmen invaded the Federal College of Education in Kabuga in Kano State, northwest Nigeria. The Minister of Education, Ibrahim Shekarau, who visited the school today, commiserated with the victims' families. Many of the injured who survived the attack are in hospital, and the Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II, was one of the early callers at the hospital to see the victims.
The wounded students in hospital beds. They are alive but in serious pains. Some with disfigured faces, others with broken limbs. And this one is not only in pains but can't stand unaided. The Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II, was one of the early callers to the hospital. And back to the school where the Minister of Education, Ibrahim Shekarau, is visiting. He says he is here to get first-hand information about the tragic incident.
It is unfortunate that the trend we're experiencing is institutions of learning are being targeted. This is most unfortunate, and I'm sure all of us, state and federal government, and all security agencies and all concerned will have hands on deck to ensure maximum safety of life and properties in our institution.
The minister is also seeking the cooperation of all to tackle the challenge of terrorism.
Security is the business of everybody. The federal government, the state government, the local government, the communities, the elders, society, everybody should be concerned.
For the State Emergency Management Agency, the damage caused by the terrorists will take some time to heal.
Our assessment is that in as much as we are concerned about this increasing attacks on public schools, we think we should ask the public to be very vigilant so that this thing will not occur again. And I can assure you that we have done an assessment. We will now go back to our head office and report what we have seen so that what intervention the federal government through the National Emergency Management Agency can offer to the school, to the College of Education, and also to the hospital here.
There's been an upsurge in the attacks of schools, particularly in the northern region. But the government says there's no cause for alarm, as attention is now shifting on how to keep our schools safe from terrorist attacks.
And in another sad incident, 3 people have died instantly after a tanker loaded with diesel ran into a parked tanker on Iburutu Army Barracks axis of the Murtala Mohammed Highway in Calabar, Cross River State. An eyewitness account says residents around the valley close to the road lost some of their property in the explosion that followed. They say accidents occur frequently on Iburutu Road, blaming it on the indiscriminate parking of tankers on the highway.
Severally, there have been accidents of this nature, but not to this magnitude. I would plead on the DOPT, the Department of Public Transport, to help us who are living within this environment, to decongest that park. Those trailers should not be parking on the road. This is highway. This is major road. If they have their park, I think that their park is not on the major road. Their park is right inside. They should do that. There have been several accidents of this nature, but unfortunately not to this magnitude. So I want to use this medium to tell the state government and also the transport department to help us and decongest the road of Calabar.
The House of Representatives has summoned the Minister of Petroleum and the Group Managing Director of the NNPC over the ongoing strike by oil workers in the country. The Joint House Committee on Petroleum took this decision after their planned meeting on the matter could not hold, as those invited failed to turn up. While the Minister, Dezani Alison Madueke, gave no reason for her absence, the GMD NNPC sent a letter to the committee saying it was an internal matter and they were working on a resolution. The House resolved to invite the two officials for another meeting next week.
Our collective integrity is being eroded, our powers are being eroded, and every single time we'll sit down and say, extend time, extend some invitation. Mr. Chairman, sir, they are playing out the clock. It's like a basketball game. They know you will extend. You extend another 48 hours, another letter will come, something will come up. We are legislators. We are not only here to sit down and keep working for and on behalf of NNPC. They are just one component in a very big jigsaw puzzle, Mr.
Now that they have already initiated internal processes to address the issue, I am of the strong opinion that this Parliament should, as a matter of fact, support the ongoing process. But for every other failure on the part of agencies of government or government functionaries to honor the invitation of this House, appropriate action can be taken.
Summon the following persons to appear before this Joint Committee to come and explain to Nigerians the causes of this reported strike, so that we can intervene and make our input and appeal to the President and the Commander-in-Chief and some other persons who may have one thing or the other to do on this matter to take appropriate steps.
In part two, after the break, President Jonathan accepts endorsement as PDP's sole candidate. That's in a moment. Do join us again.